Hello everyone and welcome to the Topical Hour. Today we're going to be ranking and reviewing the top 5 best superhero games of all time. Let's not delay and jump right in. Coming in at the number 5 spot, we have Marvel's Spider-Man. Now if you think this is a little low on the list, I can definitely see where you're coming from. It's a great game, there's no doubt, but this game also felt a bit more like a floor plan to later games. I've also seen complaints about this game being a copy-paste of other superhero games that are coming up later on the list. And the story is incredibly short as well once you remove all of the non-Spider-Man segments. But the groundwork and foundation is great. The combat is smooth and satisfying and takes what makes Spider-Man work and uses it to its advantage. Peter's spider sense won't let you take a hit without knowing it's coming, even if you don't dodge it properly. And you die in like 3 shots in this game, which is good. Spider-Man's never really been a hero who can take a few slugs no sweat, so the combat always keeps you on your toes when there are guns involved. Even when there aren't, I'm perfectly comfortable having a bout of combat that's not too difficult as long as it's fun. As for the villains of the game, they're all also great. Well, the main villains anyway. The build-up with Dr. Octopus is great, and Martin Lee is understandably upset about his situation. It's not enough to make me agree with them in the slightest, but the fact that Peter cares about them so much is what makes the story good. 7.5 out of 10, instant classic. At our number 4 spot is another surprising one, but we have Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now I'm inclined to believe that this game isn't nearly as good as the first one, and I'm sure you are too, but hear me out. The combat is better, in my estimation. It's more fluid, and I like the idea of Spider-Man relying more on his powers than his gadgets. I mean, we all love a Spider-Man who's really smart and inventive, but I also think that Miles thinks of his abilities as his tools. And I also like that it doesn't make it seem like he's just another Peter Parker, which was a problem in his original comic. The only thing I don't really approve of in this game is the main villain, but I like the side villains. The Tinkerer is cool and has cool goons, but the storyline is a bit disappointing. Finn just seems like a distraught child and doesn't have a ton of good reasoning for taking down the secondary villain, other than that she wants to. Otherwise, I love Prowler and Spider-Man's relationship with him, and I'm glad Genki gets the time he deserves, and I like the through line of Rhino being a bit personal for Miles. I gave this game a 6.5 out of 10 last time I reviewed it, but I'm changing my number to 8.5. A great game, for sure. Just before we go to number 3, I want to remind you to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you enjoy, and check out the Topical Hour Twitter in the top link in the description. Thank you. At our number 3 spot, we have Batman Arkham Asylum, and there are a ton of reasons for this. First, every single game on this list takes what Arkham Asylum started and turns it into its own thing. Arkham Asylum was definitely the foundation for most of the superhero games that came after its release. And I also think that this game is the best example on this list of a great comic book adaptation. The ambience and visuals of the asylum, the absolutely perfect music, the whimsical enemies and bosses that are still grounded somehow. Few games have achieved this level of balance between that groundedness and comic book whimsy. I could go back to this game at any point in the story, even when it's finished and I'm just collecting Riddler trophies. It's pretty insane that we ever even got a Batman game this good. 9.5 out of 10, almost perfect, but a little bit dated at times with its gameplay. Coming in at our number 2 spot, this might upset some people, but it's assuredly Guardians of the Galaxy from 2021. This game is probably one of the more underrated games of all time, and the sales are way too low. If you're feeling burned after playing Marvel's Avengers, then it's okay, because this game is nothing like that. It's a single-player game, but really you play as the entire team through Star-Lord telling them what to do and when to do it. The gameplay is great and always relatively fresh, but can be a little dull on replay. As for the story, it's miles better than almost anything on this list. You can play through the story and not investigate anything or ask your team any questions, but it's still perfectly serviceable. But if you play with your whole heart, you're rewarded by the end of the game with a great and cinematic climax and final level, along with an awesome group of characters and their actors giving hundreds of great lines each. It's simply an amazing game and deserves nothing less than a 10 out of 10. It would be an 11 if not for Mantis. And now, at the number 1 spot is Batman Arkham City. Now, the things that separate this and Asylum are pretty minimal, but it really just takes what Arkham Asylum did and makes it better. I mean, the combat is more seamless and fluid with more mechanics, gadgets, and variability in every encounter. The stealth is a bit less clunky and feels just right, and the boss fights are great in quality and in quantity. And the story is definitely better, with Batman feeling a lot more like a character who has to grapple with his feelings a little bit more. Although the remaster for this game is pretty bad, the original is great and definitely an improvement on Arkham Asylum, which I didn't even know was possible at the time. It's a 10 out of 10 game and a worthwhile experience if you grew up on the animated series and want a little more now that you're older. And that's it for a nice quick top 5 superhero games of all time. If you enjoyed the video, then like and subscribe for more like it in the future. Or not, that's fine. Play nice, people.